2 Samuel 23, so trying to keep in that 20-minute time frame. We're not going to turn to some passages, but in 2 Samuel 23, and we're not going to read a lot of verses, but I'm going to point out some things to you, and I'm going to make an appeal today to a certain group of people that are here. If you look there, in verse number 8, the Bible says, "These be the names of the mighty men whom David had." Mighty men. Mighty men. And, I know that somebody might say, well, this is not a men's session. And, I would tell you that there's some mighty women in the Bible. How many of you know who Jael is? Anybody know who Jael is? Any woman that could take a tent stake and drive it through a man's temple and put his head in the ground is a scary woman. Yeah. You don't want to marry that woman. Here's the butter, here's the milk, and here's the nail. But she's mighty. So when I talk about today about mighty men, that does not exclude you as a young lady of being able to put yourself into that. It's just a little more difficult, but I think you can. And when I think of mighty men, do you know anybody in the Bible that was named a mighty man? Gideon. Gideon said to be a mighty man of valor. So that really says something about his character. Boaz is said to be a mighty man of wealth. So he had a lot of money. And then you look at somebody like Kish. Kish is Saul's dad. He's said to be a mighty man of power, maybe influence. And I don't know how many young men in here today aspire to be a mighty man of God. I think there's a difference between being a mighty man or a man of renown and being a mighty man of God. In fact, I would say this, there probably aren't that many mighty men of God if you look at the very last verse in our chapter, 37 in all. That's it. David had mighty men, but he had 37. It's not very many. I mean, you would think there would be a whole lot more than that, but 37 is the number we're given. And I really think today, and guys, and this is just, I know I'm going to stretch myself a little bit because of me not being quite connected in some of the ways. But when you think about somebody you want to be like, that's a mighty man, or that guy has really got it together. When you think about athletics, in the States, LeBron is given so much attention. I don't really care for him at all, but he is given so much attention, you cannot deny that physically he is an imposing man. You think about a guy like Mick David. I don't even know who that is. So I hope somebody didn't feed me a lie before I got up here. But Mick David, apparently he's supposed to be something else when it comes to playing hockey. Another guy by the name of something Matthews. I wrote that down very quickly. Who? Austin Matthews. Yeah, that guy's good. He's good. I'd like to be like that. I'd like to do that. My day, I want to be like Mike. Michael Jordan was the guy. And really, I did. I tried to become something I could never be. That's what I wanted to be. I didn't really want to be a preacher. I never ran from it, but I didn't want to be a preacher. I wasn't interested. You be a man of ability. Then you think about people that are people of wealth. Elon Musk. How many of you know who that is? You know who that is? Yeah, you got all kind of cool little toys, Tesla, all those kind of things. I want to be like that guy. Or maybe Jeff Bezos, when you've got all these things, Amazon, that is all over the world, or Mark Zuckerberg, or these people that have money that is no problem for them to do whatever they want, whenever they want, however they want. I want to be that guy. I want to be that guy. And some of you guys in here, you're young enough, maybe money doesn't mean much to you, but some of you are old enough to think about, I'd like to be that guy. And then, when it comes to looks, there are some people that are mighty in their looks. Chris Hemsworth. I mean, I didn't ask for any response. Chris Hemsworth. The guy's definitely, he's a good-looking guy. There are other guys. I was told Tom Holland. I don't even know who that is. Apparently, you know who that is. Tom Holland. I want to be that guy because he is mighty good looking. I can be that guy. Chris Evans. Who are these different people that some of them probably not all artificially made. There's probably a lot of time and effort they spend in looking the way they do, plus the way God made them genetically, and they combine that. And so a young guy says, I want to look like that, or I want to have that kind of money, or I want to have that kind of power, or I want to have that kind of ability. I'd love to be out there at center court doing it that right there. But how many of you really would say, man, I would love to be Pastor Sullivan, Pastor Carlson. I'd love to be that missionary. I'd love to be the guy that takes and stands on the tip of God's spear and inserts myself into a place of darkness to bring light. I remember being 15 and 16. I don't think that was me. I didn't see the value of it. Now that I'm older, I do. So hopefully God maybe help us for just a minute to be able to see what you've got to do if you're going to be a mighty man for God. And the first thing I would point out is this. The Bible says that these be the names of the mighty men. If you're going to be a mighty man of God, first you just got to become a man. You got to be a man. And I'm not going to turn there for sake of time, but 1 Corinthians chapter 13, 11 tells you what a man is. He says that when I became a man, that I began to think differently, speak differently. I put away childish things. And that means your character. So you guys, if you're going to be a man, it's not about how much muscle you have on the outside. It becomes about what kind of character you have on the inside. When I was a child, I spake as a child. I understood as a child. I thought as a child. But when I became a man, not when I was able to finally grow a full beard, not when I was able to finally carry a weapon, not when I was able finally to bench press 180 pounds 15 times. You know, it's the character on the inside. And if you're not growing character, you're never going to be a mighty man for God. Can't do it. That's not saying you can't do something, but you can't do it. And then you think about this, and I will have you turn here just a few pages back. Go to 1 Samuel 22. These mighty men, I think that we read about, I think that they were not viewed as mighty at one point in their life. So not only is there got to be growth in your character, but somebody's got to train you, and somebody's got to rub off on you. Look, if you would, with me, 1 Samuel 22, look at verse number 2. And everyone that was in distress, and everyone that was in debt, and everyone that was discontented gathered themselves unto him, and he, David, became a captain over them, and there were with him about 400 men. I believe, I can't prove it, but I believe that the 37 men you read about in 2 Samuel 23, I believe those men were present here with David, which means that they were in distress, they were in debt, and they were discontented. You say, what happened to them? The more time they spent around David, the better they became in who they were. And you young men, listen, you can learn Bible, you can do all kind of things. The more time you spend not just in the presence of men, but the man of God, when you spend time with Jesus Christ, it's going to change you. Come on, there's got to be a guy in here that would help me out there for just a moment. You spend time with Jesus Christ, he's going to change who you are. He's going to change your direction. He's going to change your purpose. He's going to change the way you look at people. He's going to change so much about your life. They spent time with David in a cave, discontented, in debt, distressed, and 37 came out mighty men. There's a training by being somebody. I wore this tie today on purpose. A man that I believe to be a great man gave me this tie. I don't know that I would have ever picked it out, but I love it. Because when I put it on, I think about him, and I'm reminded that's a man of God. So you've got to be trained, or you've got to spend time with God. You've got to grow in your character. But thirdly, go back to our text. Let me show you something that will keep you from being a mighty man. This is so pertinent for your generation. Go back, if you would, 2 Samuel 23, and look what the Bible says. And this is something prevalent today. Verse 10, the Bible says at the end of verse 10, that this man wrought a great victory that day, and the people returned after him only to the what? So you know what that means? All the people came running back after the mighty man did the work. They had their own self-interest at stake. Selflessness. If you're going to be mighty man for God, if you're going to be a man, you've got to put away self. A man cares more about the people that are under him than he does himself. A man will see that his family is tended to. A man will see that the people that he's responsible for, he'll take care of their needs. Listen, I'll never forget this. This is a great quote. I'm not going to tell you where it came from. Leaders eat last. A man that is a true leader will take and make certain that everybody else is taken care of before he gets it, instead of being the first guy in the line that eats the choicest piece of meat and has the choicest seat. A real leader eats last. And when you're all about self, you cannot be a mighty man because you just see you. You just see you. Then look what else it says about them. There's selflessness has to be involved. Look at verse number 9. I think it's funny. The Bible says at the end of the verse, and the men of Israel were what? Look at the end of verse 9. And the men of Israel were what? Come on now. And the men of Israel were what? Sound like me, they ran away, right? Look at the end of verse number 11. And the people what? They fled. Look at it again. And the people fled from the Philistines. They're running away. Self-preservation. I am not going to put myself in the middle of this fight. I'm running the other direction. You know, the Marines love to say, we don't run from the battle, we run to the battle. And I appreciate the Marines we have in the States. I'm glad there are people that run to the battle, but there are a lot of, are you listening? There are a lot of Christians, there are a lot of people like you that are not running to the battle of faith and the good fight. They're running the other direction. I don't want to get engaged. I don't want to go out there in front of all those people. I care about my own self-protection. And if you're thinking about your self-preservation, guys, if you're thinking about what people are going to say about you, how you're going to look, what it's going to cost you as far as reputation, I'm not going to be a man of God because I don't want to be looked at funny. I don't want people to think there's something different about me. I don't want that. I'm going to protect my image. If you're protecting your image and you're indulging yourself, you can never be mighty for God. You got to be a man. But then the second thing is this. I think we're doing pretty good. The second thing is this. Look, mighty, you have to be a man, but secondly, you got to be enabled by God. I remember reading this passage and I used to think, wow, what a man. Look what I mean by that. Verse number 8. At the end of the verse, there's this guy named Adino. You say, that's a funny name. I bet you wouldn't tell him that. He lifted up his spear against 800 whom he slew at one time. Well, you're not getting it like I'm getting it. He had a spear. All right, when I was in the military, my personal weapon was an AR-15. As an officer, you could carry a sidearm, but you may have 9 rounds in that AR-15. You have a 15-round clip. You can have a 30-round clip. Anybody that's a mathematician, how many 30-round clips would I have to kill 800 men with one bullet each man? Well, I'm not giving you an answer. I'm just asking the question. Easy answer would be a lot, right? This guy had one spear and he killed 800 guys. That's a bad man. Look, I know that the dude over here scored 4 goals and the little guy that was over here scored 4 goals. This guy had 800 at one time. And I used to think, how did he do that? What kind of training did he have? I mean, SEAL training? I mean, I tell you what he did. He had the might of God that enabled him. Do you understand that? And you look down the passage, you can see more than once that something like that happened. Look at the verse number 11. There's a guy and he's by himself and there's a troop of Philistines. One guy against a troop. The troop of Philistines, and he ends up being victorious. Skip down to verse number 20. You have a guy here, he goes down, and in the snow, you guys ought to relate to this. At the end of the verse, he went down also and slew a lion in the midst of the pit in time of snow. How many of you guys are going to get in a pit with a dog in the snow? I'm not going to get in a pit with a dog. He went down into a pit with a lion in the snow. and killed him. That's a bad man. But it wasn't because he knew, I'm a 28 degree in black belt lion killing. He had somebody much bigger had his hand on him and said, I'm going to let you do that. You go through there and you can read about these guys. They had the hand of God. Would you write this verse down? We don't have time to look. Ephesians chapter 6. Ephesians 6, 10 through 18, great passage to memorize. But Ephesians 6 verse 10 says to be strong in the Lord and in the power of His might. I do not think that our champions in Christianity are men of great physical ability. I don't think that. I don't think they're men of great physical or great wealth and resources. You read 1 Corinthians, there are not many noble, not many mighty. We don't have men like that's not who we champion. You know who we champion? We see guys that don't have the physical ability and don't have the resources and don't have the famous name, but they stand up and they've got a God in heaven who is able to enable them to do exceedingly abundantly above all they ask or think, and people sit back and scratch their head. How did that guy accomplish that? And the answer is God put His hand on him. Strong in His might. You ladies, if you think that you can take all the classes on being a great mother and you have all these examples, you're going to need more than that. You're going to need a God to be able to help you to do something that's beyond your ability. And what I'm saying is that to be mighty, you've got to be a man, but you've also got to be a man enabled by God. Lastly, then you need to be in the battle. If you're going to be a mighty man, you've got to be in the fight. And if you look there in verse number 8, 800 men, he was willing to fight. Are you willing to fight? Come on. Are you willing to fight the good fight of faith? You might be willing to strap it on in hockey and go out there and check somebody and do this. Are you willing to fight the good fight of faith? Because these guys right here, they're not only willing to fight, but look, they're also willing to take up the sword. Verse number 10, this man, the Bible says, his hand clave into the sword. You could not be mighty for God if you're ashamed to have a Bible out in public. You got to be willing to take the sword. You got to be willing to stand for this Bible. You got to be willing to stand for the principles in it. A real man is going to take the sword of the Spirit and not going to be ashamed of what's in it. Listen, you should never be ashamed of what God put in the Bible. You shouldn't apologize for what God wrote down. You shouldn't be ashamed of it. You should be a champion and say, whatever's in this book is exactly right and the thing that we need for our help. He took the sword. Not only that, though, look, you got to be willing to fight, you got to be willing to take the sword, but you got to be willing to stand. There's a lot of people not willing to do that. Verse number 12, he stood in the midst of the ground. Mr. Leckman the other day stood up. How old are you, Andrew? Is it Andrew? James, how old are you? 14. Stood up in the middle of the crowd, 14 years old. You saw 4 guys stand up here today. I thought they did a great job. 4 guys yesterday. I asked one of them, you ever done that before? He said, never done that before. Never stood up in front of a bunch of people like that. It takes something to stand. There are a lot of people who don't want to stand. They're going to sit and let somebody else do it. If you're going to be mighty for God, you've got to be willing to stand. And then in verse number 10, the Bible says, look at this. And he arose and smote the Philistines until his hand was weary and clave unto the sword. You got to be willing to endure some things. If you're going to be mighty for God, you got to be willing to endure. Come on, how many of you were impressed with the ladies that were able to hold those encyclopedias up last night? Anybody besides me? You know, I thought it would be embarrassing. Here's what I was thinking. I'm not even going to say what I'm thinking because it might be true. But if the ladies could hold it up longer than the men, wouldn't that be embarrassing? I mean, maybe for you ladies it would be cool, but for the men it would be very embarrassing. And they're up there and they're just gutting it out. And you guys were enjoying that. So many people at the first bump, the first hurtful thing, they take it personal. I'm done. I quit. I'm not going to do it anymore. Somebody says something about what you're wearing, something about the way you talk, the way you act. And all I'm saying is you've got to be able to endure. Now, I feel like maybe for you, maybe I'm stepping out a little bit far. Because right now, what real fight are you in? Well, the good fight of faith. There's people going to hell, and you definitely could help in that fight. All right? And maybe you're not a man right now. Maybe you're 15. Maybe you still think as a child and speak as a child. But there's a day coming that you want to be a man. Hopefully you don't want to stay a child all your life. You want to get a license. You want to get a job. You want to get a wife. You want to have resources. You want to get a car. All right, so what I'm saying is, are you aspiring to be Chris Hemsworth? Are you aspiring to be one of the guys that we read about in the Bible and say, I want to do something like that, and I can hear it in my mind. And I would have done this if I was your age. Why would I want to do that? Let me give you the answer really quickly. I notice in the passage the reason I want to choose to be a mighty man of God. How many people did they protect? We talked about that last night. One guy in the middle of the field by himself, but there's families that are back behind him. And one guy protected a whole lot of people. You know what else I noticed about the passage? Standing in a field of lentils, which I'm not really a fan of, but that's food. And then it was in harvest time where another man stood and fought. I wonder how many people they provided for. If they had gotten up and walked off, how many people were benefiting? You may think that Tom Holland is somebody to be like, but I wonder who he's helping. I wonder who he's protecting. I wonder who he's providing for. Do you really think there are people that are benefiting from him, or do you think he's benefiting from them? Do you understand that? These men are providing something that is helpful to families, to children. They're protecting people. And you know what else they did? They pleased the king. Oh my, they pleased the king. You said, well, what's the big deal about pleasing the king? Come on now, look. Their name's in this book. Come on, their name's in this book. How long will this book last? Oh, wait, I think I asked a hard question there. Will this book ever cease to be? So how long will their names be recognized and honored as mighty men? So when you walk up to a Dino in heaven, you're a Dino? Yep. I don't know which one you are. Did you kill 800? Yep, 800 men for David and for God. Wow. If Tom Holland is 25, one day he won't be. He can't keep his looks. Chris Hemsworth can't keep his looks. That's why guys like Brad Pitt and Leonardo DiCaprio, they're doing other things now because they don't look like they did 25 years ago. Elon Musk can't keep his money. Right now he can't keep it for other reasons, but there's one day he won't be able to keep it at all. Jeff Bezos, one day he can't keep his money. He's going to lose all of that. Do you know Mick David? Mick David is going to reach a place one day where's my little man? Where little man right here could skate circles around him. You say, never. When he's 85? Going to lose his ability. LeBron one day, all that muscle, all that quick twitch fiber is going to go away. The wealthiest, the most powerful men, the most able men. You know what's going to happen to them one day? It's going to end. Do you know if you choose to be mighty for God and you do something that pleases Him and you provide for some people? I believe what Brother Sullivan, Brother Newman, what other men here, Brother Bishop, what they've done is going to last for eternity. And I believe you get him in heaven. I think, hey, would you wish you could have swapped places with Elon Musk? Not at all. I am so glad I got to do what I did. Wouldn't you have loved to look like Chris Hemsworth? No. I'm glad I did what I did. Now, who do you want to be? Come on, that's an honest question. Really, who do you want to be? You want to be mighty for God, affect some people's lives, provide something for some people, please Him, or do you want to live a life of self-interest and self-protection? Who do you want to be?